Today, we are absolutely going to completely transform how you perceive and handle life's inevitable challenges, like, say, an impending exam you're dreading. We're unpacking the science behind something literally every single one of us experiences: stress. From those looming deadlines to, personal crises, we are going to decode exactly what happens in your mind and body, and way more importantly, how you can take back control. To kick us off, I actually want you to define stress in your head right now. When you hear that word, what pops into your mind? Is it a massive traffic jam when you're already running late for work? Maybe a really bad breakup? Or an impossibly hard test? Well, I'm going to tease you with a little secret right now. The real answer isn't the external event. No way. The situation itself, that isn't actually the stress. So if the external event isn't the stress, what is? Let's take a look at the actual science. Okay, so stress is officially defined as a dynamic pattern of responses. Basically, it's an inside job. Imagine your life is just humming along smoothly in a perfect state of balance, or equilibrium. Then, bam! A challenging event occurs, a stressor. Stress is actually the pattern of physiological, emotional, and behavioral responses you make when that balance is totally disrupted. Fun fact, the word itself originates from the Latin word strictus, which literally means to tighten or constrict. It's a perfect description for that physical feeling of tension we get in our muscles and our breathing when our equilibrium is just completely thrown off. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today, so you can see exactly where this complex psychological journey is going. Don't worry, it's super structured and easy to follow. First, we'll be redefining stress and strain. Second, biology versus cognitive appraisal. Third, we'll look at the impact on health. Fourth, strategies for effective coping, and we will wrap it all up with building a resilient personality. So, let's jump right into Section 1, redefining stress and strain. It's time we challenge the huge myth that all stress is inherently bad or destructive. Yeah, there are actually two sides to the stress coin. On the left, you've got eustress. And this is the good stress. It's positive, it gives you energy, and it actually increases your arousal. If you have a huge exam coming up in 2 weeks, eustress is the exact thing that motivates you to sit down, study, and stay on track instead of just, scrolling on your phone all day. On the right, though, we have distress. This is when the pressure just becomes way too high. It's negative, it causes anxiety, and it actively degrades your performance. Also, just a quick technical note here, when we have a reaction to purely external stressors, like say a super loud noise or extreme cold, the technical term psychologists use for that is actually strain. All right, let's shift gears to Section 2, biology versus cognitive appraisal. This is where we look at a really fascinating battle of scientific theories regarding how our body reacts to a challenge versus how our mind interprets it. First up is the biological view, championed by the father of modern stress research, Hans Selye. He proposed the General Adaptation Syndrome, or GAS. It lays out this 3-step physical journey. Step 1 is the alarm reaction. Your adrenal glands kick in, cortisol floods your system, and you are in full fight or flight. Step 2 is resistance. Think of it like being stuck in a massive traffic jam. A really smart driver will turn off their car's AC to safely conserve fuel, right? Because they don't know how long they'll be stuck there. Well, your body does the exact same thing. Your parasympathetic nervous system steps in to cautiously manage your energy. But if that stressor continues indefinitely, you crash right into Step 3, exhaustion. Your resources are totally depleted, leaving you super vulnerable to illness. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the contrast here. Selye's biological view was purely physiological, and honestly, a bit gloomy. He believed this response was universal. Human, animal, we all react the exact same way to every demand. But psychologist Richard Lazarus strongly disagreed. He argued that stress isn't just some universal physical reflex, it's highly psychological. Lazarus introduced the cognitive theory of stress, arguing that our subjective perception, meaning how our mind interprets a challenge, is what actually dictates our stress levels. It's an incredibly empowering shift in perspective if you think about it. Lazarus broke this whole process down into 2 distinct steps of cognitive appraisal. Step 1 is primary appraisal. When a disruptive event happens, let's go with a bad breakup, you first judge the environment. Is this a harm that's already happened? Is it a future threat? Or is it a challenge you can actually overcome? If you perceive it negatively, you move right to Step 2, secondary appraisal. This is where you look inward and evaluate your coping resources. Do you have the skills to handle this?
And let's be blunt here for a second. The research explicitly points out that highly practical resources like having money and a strong social support system are incredibly effective coping tools. If you've got high resources, your experience of stress is going to be significantly lower than someone facing that exact same event with zero support.
Moving right along to Section 3, the impact on health. Let's look at the physical toll it takes when the journey of a stressor goes completely unresolved and we remain constantly agitated. So what exactly happens when we don't have those resources to cope? The ultimate consequence is burnout, a state of total physical, emotional, and psychological exhaustion. Imagine a blazing, relentless sun just beating down on a small pool of water. Day by day, it evaporates that water until the pool is entirely bone dry. Chronic stress acts exactly like that sun. It continuously drains all your physical energy, your positive emotions, and your cognitive resources until you are completely exhausted, just functioning with a heavy head and a totally blank mind.
And honestly, the damage goes even deeper than that, right down to a microscopic level. The field of psychoneuroimmunology breaks this down beautifully, showing us exactly how our mind impacts our immune system. Notice those natural killer cells on this chart. Normally, these guys have high cytotoxicity, which is really just a fancy scientific term for their fighting power. But under high stress, that cytotoxicity is drastically reduced. Your immune system, which normally goes around destroying viruses and tumors, suddenly fails to fight off basic pathogens. Stress literally disarms your body's internal military. It's wild.
Okay, enough of the doom and gloom. Welcome to Section 4, Strategies for Effective Coping. It's time to eagerly pivot from the problem to the actual solution and learn how we can actively neutralize a stressor.
I know that physical toll sounds absolutely terrifying, but this is where we learn how to regain absolute control over our equilibrium. We broadly have two main strategies here. On the left is problem-focused coping. This is when you attack the issue directly to alter the event itself. So, stressed about an exam? Reading the textbook and making a study schedule. That's problem-focused. On the right, we have emotion-focused coping. This isn't about changing the event, it's about managing your internal feelings, like crying, venting to a friend, or seeking comfort. While problem-focused is generally the most effective way to go, sometimes emotion-focused is totally necessary, like when you're dealing with a loss you simply cannot change. Oh, but psychologists do note a third strategy, avoidance. Ignoring the problem by binging movies or just shutting down, yeah, that's considered the absolute least effective strategy of all. For a slightly more clinical approach to coping, let's walk through the highly structured steps of the biofeedback technique. Step 1 is developing awareness. You really have to first recognize your specific physiological symptoms. For instance, maybe you notice your heart starts racing and your palms start sweating when you're stressed. Step 2 is learning control. Usually in a quiet, calm environment, you practice techniques to manually slow your breathing and calm your heart rate down. Then Step 3 is everyday application. Once you've learned these control techniques, you apply them in real-life stressful situations to literally short-circuit your body's stress response. It's all about training your mind to command your biology. How cool is that? And this brings us to our final stop, Section 5, Building a Resilient Personality. Let's talk about why some people seem virtually bulletproof against heavy stress. Seriously, have you ever noticed how certain individuals seem completely bulletproof, even when they're facing the exact same horrific circumstances as everyone else? Well, psychological research identifies a specific personality type equipped with what's called the hardiness trait, and this brilliantly illustrates the 3 crucial C's of a stress-resistant personality. First up, commitment, a deep dedication to seeing things through rather than just giving up. Second, control, a really strong belief in personal mastery, believing that you steer the ship of your own life. And third, challenge. This is the big one. Hardy individuals view crises and disruptions not as debilitating threats, but as opportunities to overcome and learn. The true power literally lies in flipping your cognitive appraisal from "I am threatened" to "I am challenged." Which leaves us with one vital question to wrap things up. Will you let your next life challenge break you, or will you adopt the philosophy to grow through what you go through? The science is absolutely clear on this. Stress is not what happens to you, it is how you respond to what happens to you. By understanding your biology, reframing your thoughts, and deploying the right coping tools, you can absolutely turn any crisis into a stepping stone for control and growth. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you provoked, eager, and totally ready to rethink how you tackle your next big life obstacle.